Global Soccer. Broadcasting from the Philly Camp Studio in Center City, Philadelphia on 106.5 FM.
Welcome to World Sports Show. Charlie Flo here with John DeCriscio and our guest Blake Hornbuckle. We have got a great show tonight. We'll be recapping everything in the World Cup. We'll be talking NWSL soccer. We'll be talking MLS soccer. We'll be talking Junior Lone Star soccer. A lot on the plate today. Let's go through the local score lines. The Philadelphia Union played the Atlanta United team yesterday, lost by a score of 2-0. World Cup is down to 4 teams. Belgium's in the Final Four. Croatia's in. England's in. And France is in. Lineups will be France and Belgium on Tuesday and Croatia and England on Wednesday. And the final will be exactly 1 week from today. And then the mediocre, I guess, follow-up, the third-place game, whatever you will call it, will be on Saturday. Very big event. We also have big news out of the NWSL that Sam Kerr became the first NWSL player to hit 50 goals, as she had a hat trick against her former team, Sky Blue, in a 3-1 win. Also coming in on the winner, a late 86-minute winner from Marta, as they beat the Washington Spirit by a score of 2-1. We'll break down all the action. And Junior Lone Star team I coach with locked up the number 2 seed in the MPSL playoffs. They will host local team Westchester on Wednesday. This is July 3rd here in South Philly at 7 o'clock. So that's your local ties. So a very, very big show tonight. We'll break down everything with the World Cup. We'll talk about Blake's career. He is now coaching with Continental right here in the Philadelphia area. Got plenty of players that he's coached that are now going to be going on to the college game. And so we've had some great conversations. We'll talk about the NCAA tournament, and we'll talk World Cup and just some of the interesting games that we've all seen this past couple weeks. So I think the hot trending topic is the World Cup. Yesterday we saw England go through. We saw the host nation, Russia, lose to Croatia. Sweden played a very inspired game, but I think England was just too much for them. I think that England and Sweden were both playing with house money, but England just had the better players and at the end of the day, more talent. It was a pretty interesting back-and-forth game. I thought Sweden would at least maybe score a goal, but I think England's found their goalkeeper.
Yeah. I like that playing with house money. You got a national team going to the Final Four of the World Cup playing with house money. Interesting.
I mean, the only – okay, I do have a lot of friends that are suddenly texting me now, guys, that, oh, well, I had Croatia going all the way. Oh, I had Belgium going all the way. I'm like, I got to see your bracket and you holding up the New York Times day of, because
right.
it is funny how everybody suddenly is, I got them on my bracket. It's the same thing with the NCAA tournaments for any sport. Oh, I had them winning it all, but if you make more than one bracket, it doesn't count. They all avoid themselves. So, but I'll be honest, I didn't pick any of these teams except France. So I got 1 out of 4 teams right on my little predictor I did with some friends.
Interesting.
Yeah, 1 out of 4. And that's not good odds. You're not going to be successful if you're going to be trying to make a living gambling at a 1-4 ratio. Even as a coach, if you go 1-3, get 1 right, get 3 wrong, you're not going to have a long career. But it's up in the air. I don't even know who to pick for the final because every team can be argued at this point. If you've gotten this far, you're legit. There's no team that is squeezing in. The only team that would be like the wild card in was if Russia had gotten through. But every single one of the teams has legit stars. They have stars that play in the highest league, Spanish league, EPL league, leagues throughout Europe. So every single player on every roster is playing in a major league. I think the only upset would have been Russia, where the other players are based in the Russian league.
It would have been interesting if they did win because, last 3 weeks you've been claiming fool's gold.
Yeah, well, sometimes the fool gets fooled.
That would have been pretty funny.
But, I mean, it's always good to see the host. It reminded me a lot of 2002 when South Korea made it all the way to the third-place match. They come in, and even Japan gone to the knockout stage, that sometimes the host nations have traditionally done well, and we saw Brazil get trounced in our last World Cup semifinal, but besides South Africa, every single host nation has gotten into the knockout stage and done some damage.
I mean, what do you think's worse, getting that trouncing by Germany or getting this loss this time?
I think it's more respectful for Russia to go out on PKs. Yeah, you're not in third place game where we did see Brazil, but you look at a Brazil, anything but a World Cup title is almost as listed as a failure.
You're right.
Russia getting out of the group was an accomplishment.
That's it.
And taking 2 games in a row down to PKs, you're talking 1 PK, 5 inches to the right, the first Russian player misses, wide, Russia could be through.
I mean, I think once it's over, we got to take a look at all the PKs and look at the quality of the PKs. It's been pretty bad.
Some of the sports scientists people I've been talking about need to break them down. I'm sure you've seen a lot of PKs in your days, Blake. Coaching the women's game in college, we've all seen games come down to PKs. It's a excruciating process.
Well, if you look at the first Russian shooter, he basically chipped it a little bit and didn't put speed on his ball. And that goalkeeper had an easy play, even with a hurt hamstring. If I'm taking those kicks, I'm going to that man's right, and I'm going to hit it as hard as I can, probably a little bit above
yeah, you know which hamstring's got to make him get up a little bit. And
I mean, he was real close from not even being in the shootout. I mean, that injury, and then it was I wrote that down for notes for the show. That PK in particular.
Yeah.
Terrible.
Horrible. We've seen some really, really bad ones. I mean, even from the very beginning with Messi's PK that the Icelandic keeper saves, it wasn't a true to the corner. It was still one of the, I call those 2/3. We're not down the middle, not in the corner, but kind of in between. It's like you're about 3/4 of the way over there. I've never understood that. It's just you're giving the goalkeeper a chance. If he guesses that side, most likely he's going to get that side. You have some of the goalkeepers that might guess to the right, and the player goes to the right, but it's hit so hard with pace in the lower corner, you just physically can't get there in time.
That's it. And I think that, going back to the youth level, I think, under 9, under 10, almost at least 2-3 times of a year for practice, and the cones and the rings are going up right next to the post on the inside. Let's go, get in there, hit them with pace. That's how easy PK.
Well, it's
Come up without even thinking, just go
muscle memory,
punch it home.
To me, it's almost a little bit harder to do than say a free throw in basketball, but it comes down to muscle memory, and it's good to do it when I always do it at the end of practices because tired legs, anybody can hit a PK on full body, full strength,
full freshness.
But you look at 120 minutes. Plus, we do have the factor now that I love the FIFA rule adding the extra sub in there, the 4th sub. Which, in hindsight, I don't agree with Croatia's sub of not putting. I mean, but maybe the keeper was good enough to go. But that was a big gamble, not leaving that sub because when it comes to PKs,
and but I can give or take that rule, the extra sub. But it looks like just from watching it, it's usually a midfielder. Usually holding midfielders coming in and out.
Somebody that can hold some pace up because those guys get worn down so much.
Yeah, maybe a striker, but I haven't really seen too many defenders getting plucked off.
Yeah.
For that 4th sub.
Defenders, you don't want to mess with the chemistry in the back. And strikers, those are the guys that are going to put it in the back of the net. So I think it's a guy that's been worn and torn that maybe you don't want taking a PK. I mean, there are guys that traditionally don't want to take PKs.
Even your best players, too. If you look at the preparation England had, I read an article recently about how they prepared for the PK shootouts. And they basically did what we would do for an NCAA tournament game.
Okay.
Is we would essentially have our players go from midfield. They take the lonely road is what we called it. And they would go down. We would do it scripted exactly like it would happen in an NCAA tournament game.
Yeah, you don't see a lot of teams do that. And that's something that, like you were saying, Blake, that is it's good. It's just that walk and being accustomed. You might do it at the end of practice where everybody's standing at the 18. It's not the realistic. It's that lonely, long walk. And even lonelier is when you miss it. You got to walk back to that huddle, knowing. And I think the frustrating part is you do feel for these guys. When they put on a good PK and the keeper just gets them. I mean, it's tough. We've seen some really good PKs get saved that nothing the player did wrong. It's just it comes down to a flip of a coin, and I think the gutsiest thing I ever see is a guy go down the middle. That's something I've never done in my entire life, taking PKs. I've never gone down the middle. All my 40-plus years, never, except goofing off with friends, but in a PK account, I've never gone down the middle.
It's tough.
I don't know. Have you ever gone down the middle of you guys? I mean, that's something different about, psychologically shooting at something that's it's obstructing your way.
I mean, I could tell you when I was a keeper, nobody ever went down the middle on me because I'm stuck in the middle. I'm not getting corners.
I'm a big guy right here. I ain't moving.
I would always pick a corner and just
I'm a
go
corner
with it.
guy.
That's it.
Lower corner, not even a higher corner. That's that's such a gamble. The guys that go high corner, and we've seen some that have gotten skied. I mean, look at Peru. They may be still in the World Cup now. If you're talking 1 or 2 PKs go through for Peru,
that's it.
You know, it's. You also have to factor in that adrenaline. When you have your heart rate increased, all that part of your body starts raising up, because when you have adrenaline, you're bigger. You're physically bigger. Your body is higher up. So that's actually going against you on PKs. All the energy is going to make the ball go up.
I mean, this is a good topic that we could talk about.
It's
PKs.
sports science, you know.
I mean,
we've not seen anybody break it down.
No, I mean, the first thing with PKs is, you know, we talked about last week. Do we like them or not? So, I mean, I think we can live with them. I mean,
I can live with it, but that's the determining factor.
Yeah.
Like ice hockey is a different type of sport. They just play until the tie is broken. But PKs is the way that it's been settled for years, and until somebody comes up with something different, I accept it.
Right. As a purist, do you like PKs?
You know, PKs are good. It depends on what side you're on. That's the big thing.
Ask me after the game.
Exactly. Ask me after the game, to where when they go in, and you got to have the nerve and the guts to continue to go to that side as you do in training.
Yeah.
Like when England prepared, if Dyer keeps going the same way and Pickford saves it, he's still got to have the guts to go that way during the game.
Yeah.
And it's gotten so tight that I had a conversation with a guy, Rich Hardis, who was Manchester United's goalkeeper coach. And it turned out he was the reserve team, the first team keeper coach, and their keeper coach actually had an injury. So he got to go with Sir Alex when they went to Russia to win the Champions League.
Wow.
And on the inside of Van der Sar's towel, they had the directions of each shooter for
Chelsea,
which way they were going. And I think that started a big part of it, because he spent literally, I think, a half a year charting PK kicks of where players were going. And he was a brilliant guy. Came out of Leeds United and was just absolutely fantastic, and got to work with, you know, someone like Sir Alex Ferguson, and also just the know-how to say, okay, how are we going to chart this? How are we going to gain an advantage with PKs when everybody thinks it's just chance? It's not chance. You have to pick your spot. You have to have the accuracy, and you have to have the courage.
Players can be
to step
creatures
up
of
and do
habits.
it. Yes.
Courage
Very
is
much so.
the key word.
It is. It's a big one. It's like when you're looking for players. You want that player that shows that one moment of courage that you're like, that's my player right there. That's who I'm going for. I'm either going to purchase their rights, or I'm going to recruit them, or they're going to come to our youth system, whatever it may be. That's the kind of player that I'm looking for, is they have that something to them, that courage.
Yeah, a lot of it's body language. You're watching the players walk up, how they approach the ball. I mean, that's such a big thing. One of players I worked with when I was with Sky Blue was Nadia Nadim, and now she's no longer with Sky Blue, but me and her had a really great off-the-record conversation about how she takes PKs, because I watched her take a couple PKs, and she would just rifle the ball. She said, my thing was I would stare at the keeper, make eye contact the entire walk from the center circle to the PK side, and I would just stare, try to lock eyes with that keeper, and it's just like it becomes an intimidating thing. And I don't walk back to an angle. I don't walk back. I just walk straight back, and I literally stand both feet exactly, so I don't know if I'm going to start with my right or left. So, and just stare at the player the whole time, stare at the goalkeeper. I mean, that's an intimidating thing right there. Sure. You have a player like that, and not also, too, is the way you line up. A lot of players try to do the tricky things, and I think we've seen it backfire. Some players take the stutter steps, or they try to come in a certain angle. We've seen keepers read them, you know, and the stutter step, and the guys end up missing because you're so worried about faking the keeper, you've taken your mind and focus off the goal itself, and now you're worried about what the keeper's going to do instead of you just doing your job.
Well, think about the intimidation factor from a goalkeeper's perspective.
Yeah.
Who are the top goalkeepers in the world that would intimidate you taking a PK kick? If you look through history, you think Tony Schumacher from West Germany would intimidate you if he walks out and stares at you?
Yeah, exactly.
Especially after he took out the French player in '82 and almost killed him with his body.
Yeah. Yeah, you see guys like that are just these specimens. None of us are going to scare anybody walking up. They're going to have a little laugh. It's like, I'll make a sandwich and still save your shot.
Right.
But no, just like you said, the walk up and the approach about how physically intimidating it is. And I can't think of his name. Midfielder for Croatia, drawing blank, plays for Real Madrid.
Modric.
Yep.
Missing the PK against Schmeichel in the field of play, and then going and bearing one. And how does that factor play? And you've already had a PK saved in regulation. They would have just wrapped the whole game up.
Peter Schmeichel at that point instead of
Casper Schmeichel. That's 2 weeks in a row. Man, I'm getting no luck to
because Modric walks up and he goes, wait a minute, is that Peter Schmeichel in there? the Great Dane that I'd never want to face or walk down the street against? Or is that Casper's son in goal? You know, they're pretty interchangeable, though, but they look very, very similar.
And he did something no other goalkeeper's done. He saves, 2 PKs in a shootout and saves a PK during, live action, still didn't go through. It's like, what else does a guy got to do?
Well, think about how big these keepers are today, too. You got guys like De Gea, You got Peter Cech in the day that would fly through the air at 6'6".
Courtois, it's like 6'5". It's
How do you get it past essentially someone that covers that amount of space? So there is a science to it.
Yeah, I mean, John and I have been very lucky to see a lot of these pro teams when they come to Philadelphia or even New York or D.C. watching their training. I remember going to AC Milan training session. This is back in, I want to say the early 2000s, just watching the team practice PKs, and these keepers are saving left and right. And same thing happens at the college level. When you see the same kickers, yeah, it's easy to predict. But during a game situation where you're playing players you don't see, but it becomes almost they read the players so well that if you want to see a really good PK shootout, have teams go against each other. These players, goalkeepers, know their teammates like the back of their hand. They make these saves before they even kick the ball. They know their habits so well. They learn how to read because there's a couple different kind of keepers out there. There's the kinds that can, like you said, okay, you do your homework, you do your years and years of research, you just play a guessing game, or you actually try to read the players. I mean, I've tried to do all three things playing goalkeeper, and reading a player is probably one of the hardest things is because the mind and the reaction, the body doesn't react quick. You can say, okay, I know that guy's going right, and I picked the right side, but I didn't get there quick enough. So you almost have to make your mind up before he even kicks the ball. It's reminds me a lot of baseball, like how to hit something that doesn't there yet.
Intuition. It's kind of like NCIS with Gibbs. He goes with his gut. Sometimes these guys go with their gut, and they pull off that one big save. It's like Bree Scurry. You know, when the U.S. won the big World Cup, and Brandon Chastain celebrates. Scurry makes the save because she knows it's coming. She's like, I'm going for it. Yeah. And I got it. And
it's funny how people forget about the save that everybody remembers Chastain's game winner, but you got to make a couple saves to get there.
Yep.
So, and even the whole training keepers now, when I'm training my keepers on making saves, is now you're seeing keepers make the foot save. We're seeing keepers now, like the Croatian keeper. We're seeing Russia's keeper that now that they're diving, they're learning to extend their leg up. And now I've got to worry about you saving it with your feet too.
Common sense goalkeeping, baby. Just keep the ball out of the net. That's what it's about for us that are not technical keeper trainers.
No, it's interesting because I forget what keeper coach I was talking to about that from within 6 yards. I forget which pro keeper I was talking to. Was it the convention? It'll come back to me later in the show maybe. But he says within the 6-yard box, his keepers only use their feet. He does a lot of fast shots within the 6-yard, but he just teaches reaction saving with their foot, kicking it away because just going to ground, you got to physically get to ground. When you have such point-blank range, just keep it out of the net.
Fastest part of the body at that point.
Yeah, your foot's already there, so just extend your leg out. And we see that a lot with keepers now that just pop their leg out and get big. They get so big instead of worry about crashing to the ground and covering a ball that you're realistically not going to get there.
I always call that the Jim Craig kick save.
Yeah.
That's what I call that.
So it's just going to be interesting. Like we said, coming up on Tuesday will be Belgium-France at 2 o'clock, and then on Wednesday at 2 o'clock will be England-Croatia. So let's go through the panel here, the three of us here. Just remind everybody you listen to World of Sports Show on WPPN LP Philadelphia. I'm Charlie Flo. He's John DeCriscio, and we are with Blake Hornbuckle. I got it wrong.
You were close. We're the Hornbuckles. So from the Georgia Hornbuckles.
Yeah, exactly.
Perhaps
the long lineup. The long lineup.
Actually, they were from Alabama originally. So.
Really? Okay.
Oh, yeah.
That's where my grandfather's from Huntsville, Alabama. I used to watch the Rockets go off as a kid.
My grandfather worked at Red Rock Arsenal. My mom grew up in a little town called Gurley that was just over the mountains. So when they tested the rocket boosters, because my grandfather was the supply clerk for Von Braun and the group up there that put the first rocket into space. And so he would have to determine what parts they needed, and he would have to try to figure out the translation, too, at times. So he was part of that group, and it was a lot of fun. And my mom said she could feel the rocket boosters being tested over the mountain. Because the only way to get to Gurley, Alabama at that point was one road over the mountain. So we'd go in my grandfather's big Delta 88. It was like as big as this building. You could fit about 12 people in the back seat back then, and it had one of those vinyl tops and was brown. Had the brown matching vinyl top too. It was fantastic, and you could it was a lot of fun back in those days. But I remember that, a lot of fun. A little side story there for all our fans and those listening globally to us tonight.
Sure. We built a fan base up in Huntsville, Alabama. Why not? Firing off rockets. So
that's also where an NCAA championship coach is from too.
Which coach?
Kadani McAlpine at Southern California.
Wow. See, I didn't know I was going to be based on my trivia tonight.
Northern California, Northern Alabama guy. Now he's in California. He was an assistant at Auburn. 6 years later, he's winning the national title at USC.
There we go. Bam. So, got the two games. We got the semifinal. We got France, Belgium, Tuesday. Take it around the room. Who do you guys got? Who's going through? All right, guess Blake's on the spot. Might as well let the guest go first.
Since John pointed right at me to go, that's a tough one because France has so much power and speed up top. I'm just not quite sure that they're going to be able to contain Hazard as he stretches the game and he turns the ball. Because if you watch what he did in the game against
that last
Uruguay,
20 minutes against even Brazil too, he controlled.
I'm sorry, it was Brazil. Yeah, he would turn players. He would just drag them where he wanted to, and then he
did what Neymar was supposed to do. Without he got fouled the right way. Yeah. He knew it. No, I'm serious.
And you got Lukaku, who reminds me of Damola Makachi from Nigeria, just a big, strong, fast freight train.
Yeah,
that just he could play in the NFL with his frame. That guy is so
he
strong
has that
and agile.
Tight end mentality, like fullback, and he doesn't go down easy.
No, he
doesn't.
So
I love about this Belgium team; they don't go down.
No,
I mean his 60-yard sprint set up an awesome goal.
Holy moly! If you watch the tracker on that, just the run, and Lukaku, how he's just setting up stuff. So I'm thinking right now the hot hand going with Belgium.
I like Belgium for the fact that De Bruyne too. He adds something to the game. It's unbelievably special. If you watch that goal he scored, the way he hits the ball, his technique, he lands on his shooting foot, and that ball you can basically read the label on the ball
keeper's
as
getting
he hits it.
Yeah, keeper's getting to that ball.
He's not getting to that ball, but I would still not discount France. I think Martinez gets a little bit of criticism from Belgium. They said about his tactics a little bit foolish, but guess what? He's in the semifinal of the World Cup, so who's foolish now?
Exactly.
Would be my question based on that. So that one's really kind of going to be a toss-up for me, but sentimentally, I think Belgium would be a fun team to see go through.
Yeah, that's the thing is with France, a lot of criticism. We talked a little bit of negativity on them early rounds, but you look at a team like that, they did what they had to do, and they're in the semifinal. It doesn't matter. Some of these teams, it's kind of like they don't show all their cards right away, and I think France and Belgium have gotten better every game.
And the big players are starting to step up at big moments, and that's why it's so valuable for them. Like if you look at some of the big three that are out, they didn't step up in big moments.
I think that's the neat part about this World Cup. We're seeing, as much as it sounds bad to say, we're seeing stars fade. Are you a group stage star? Are you a knockout stage star? How many of these guys play great in the group stage, but when it came to the knockout stage, they were absent? Some household names. And I think that's the changing of the guard, I could say. That now we're seeing these World Cup stars that are in their 30s now. Now you got guys in their 20s. You got teenagers on France that are 19 years old that – my kids will be able to watch and be like, oh, well, I remember this guy when he was 19. When these kids are like 10, these players are only been there. They'll be in their late 10 years from now. These players will be in their late 20s still. That's the amazing part. These players are going to be around for a while. France and Belgium youth, I think that's going to be a track meet. That could be a really light them up type of game. As good as Courtois and Belgium and even France's defense played, it has the feelings of a 4-3 type of game.
Oh, I think so. Lloris had a great save.
Yeah,
on the one header, I believe, and that was supposed to be the save of the World Cup.
Because it was only one zip then, right there.
Save that basically Neymar, I think, hits it, and Courtois just gets to the top bar.
Upper 9, you just
6'6" or 6'7", and he takes up the entire screen, the entire goal at that point.
Yeah,
you're like, hey, okay, what do you do?
That changes the whole complex of the game because suddenly, if that becomes 2-2, Brazil's got the momentum, and Brazil's a scary team. They have the crowd behind them. They get that momentum, and you start giving a team like Brazil life at the very end. We've seen it happen too many times.
And you saw Neymar's reaction after he hit that and Courtois saved it. You're just kind of like, he's like, I can't get it in past this guy. What's he doing?
What else I got to do?
Take the force field away from the goal. That's what we got to figure out. It's like when you think about it, though, is Brazil ever going to mimic the great teams from the late 50s through 70 that had that was their golden generation, in my opinion.
How do you replace a Pele? How do you? We've seen goal scorers. We've seen, the original Ronaldo, great goal scorer, but is he playing end-to-end football like a Pele?
3 player of the year, global player of the year.
But he did win a World Cup, though, so he did have that to say.
He won 3 of them.
That's true. A couple World Cups in there, but
And you look, too, if he were protected by cautions didn't go into the World Cup till 1970.
Yeah.
So if he had protection back in the late 50s when he started in 58, came on the scene.
Yeah, like 17 years old.
They had an unbelievable cast of players through those time frames with Garrincha. You had Carlos Alberto, which scored one of the top goals in World Cup history outside the right, just blast. That, would probably still be going if the net wasn't there. You have some unbelievable players at that time frame. And if you watch the build-up to that specific goal, Pele just freezes his defender. They're all basically shaded to their right. Alberto comes on a massive run through the right, and he just basically pulls a V, opens his body, lays it into Alberta's path, and then boom, smashes it. You're just thinking, wow. And, that team also later on in 82 was actually a really good World Cup, in my opinion. That's when the Brazil team was rated really high. They had Falcao, Socrates.
Yeah.
They had Junior. They had those players that were supposed to be the next generation. And they went out to Italy. And, you just watch it because Paulo Rossi scored a hat trick that game.
Yeah.
Paulo Rossi wasn't even supposed to be on the team, apparently.
Right.
So I think he was somewhere detained, let's
like
say.
we said again, that's house money. Playing with house money, man.
Well, like the Russian team was the only player from Russia that plays outside of them is one attacking player that plays over in Spain.
Yeah, that's it.
And that's it.
He's a
Everybody
reserve player in
else
Spain, not even a big-time starter.
Is on one of probably the locomotive teams, that they have, and that's what they do. And
sometimes chemistry like that, you can't buy and you can't duplicate because we've seen a lot of these World Cup teams, these guys aren't together. They might not have the camaraderie. You can have a team loaded with stars, and they go crashing out the group stage. You go crashing out round of 16 or quarterfinals because, let's be honest, you have a lot of these players, like the Russian players, they play together, know each other. And you know that Russia was putting a lot into this World Cup, so these guys got a lot of time together. Not qualifying can be a curse, but it can also be something good because there's not the pressure on you that you can focus on tactics and making your roster where – when you're qualifying, you're balancing which roster to pick. Your roster's constantly changing. You're worried about no coach is going to get fired as the host nation going in.
Well, especially when you're ranked in the 60s or 70s, and then you basically pull off, you greatly exceed the expectation.
Yeah.
I would think that those guys
a couple
are
wins away from winning the whole thing.
Yes. You go back and you look at it, too. The World Cup's been full of conspiracies, too. That's what's been really kind of interesting. If you ever research the World Cup, it started way back in 34 with the military coup from Italy.
Yeah.
And basically that happened again in 78. And a big reason why they changed the format in 86 for the last games of the first round to be simultaneous is because of what happened in 78 and 82.
Yeah, they see the scores of the first game and they know what they need to do. You go on the field knowing you need A, B, or C to go
Argentina host. They play 2 or 3 hours later than everybody else, like someone say Brazil.
Yeah.
So they know what the result needs to be. And there's the big game. There's several articles out about the Argentina-Peru game. Argentina has to beat them by, I think, 3 or 4 or 5 goals. Well, they beat them 6-0.
Yeah.
So, the word is there was some commerce and trade going on with the Peruvian goalkeeper who had some Argentina descent. So if you read the article, it becomes very interesting. And you watch it, and then in 82, it's Austria and West Germany to keep Algeria from going through.
Yep.
Because if
I have
it's
a lot of
a
Algerian friends
specific score,
that really take it to heart.
Oh, without a doubt.
That both teams go through.
Yeah. And it makes it tough. It's like you're watching a game of badminton at that point. You're just kind of, okay, they're lobbing it back and forth, and, nobody's going in for the kill at that point because they know they're both through.
Well, wouldn't say it was max fixing, but it was a situation this past World Cup where we had Senegal, Japan were in the same exact situation. Same points, everything, but it came down to the 6 tiebreaker of yellow cards. So the Japanese coach knew at that point his team's losing 1-0. And, okay, let's keep it 1-0, but not get a yellow card. And then Japan goes through to the round of 16 on FIFA Fair Play. Let's not get a yellow card. I mean, can you imagine that as a coach? I mean, something's got to make me feel dirty as a coach. I'm just out there to win. Or if we need a tie to go through, we're going out there and just trying to tie the game up. But just yell, hey, guys, don't get a yellow card. Don't foul anybody. It's cool that it's 1-0. Don't get a yellow card. It's just, even that, I think that has to be changed.
Well, you're showing conspiracy already, but how many yellow cards did they have in the previous 2 games?
Exactly.
2?
2.
So you're saying don't get a caution? Well, they weren't getting caution, so it wasn't a conspiracy.
But I know it's not a conspiracy, but you know what I'm saying? Where it's just so weird to come down to a couple of yellow cards,
I think they
based on
team
discretion.
Too.
It's a discretionary thing where one ref calls a yellow card, another ref doesn't call it a yellow card. Another ref, different styles of refereeing. Okay, I'm going to give you the 2 or 3 warning before I give you a card. Some refs, they're not messing around. They're just there to give you a card. They're not even going to talk to you.
Well, Japan actually cleaned the locker room up after the game, too, and left a note for the other team. So they're a very polite team.
Yeah, exactly. So, I'll let them slide there. And then that actually is a very, very good lesson to learn for a lot of kids out there that you're going to lose state finals, you're going to lose cup finals, no matter how hard you worked, as much as you did. Sometimes you're going to lose.
Oh, yeah. So, you're going to come up short at some point giving everything that you have.
And so now we look at the Croatia game with England. Croatia is the Wednesday game at 2 o'clock, and that'll be an interesting game too. I mean, it's don't even know who to pick there. I mean, I know who I want to win, but it's just
I thought you were doing a big build-up for my France pick.
Oh, I never went back to you about the Belgium-France
I thought it was a whole
okay.
drum roll.
Okay, no. So
No,
let's
do
keep
have-
it on Tuesday. Sorry, France and Belgium.
Just
So we need to
real quick,
Yeah.
right after the group stage, I have France and Croatia in the final.
Holy moly.
Yeah, so that's my pick.
Review the tape. It's on tape now
Review
again.
the tape. I have it locked in.
Certified.
Yeah.
Your bracket's
Certified. Yep.
Certified.
Good job.
So it's it was
Belgium, yep,
it was
Tuesday.
kind of a anything could happen type feel what I had. I mean, very lucky, yeah, but watching Croatia go through the knockout, they play hard. They tackle hard, and when they drive, like every attack is with purpose. Very lucky to make the picks, but still, 2 away. But I think Croatia is a pretty good team.
Dark horse team, man.
Dark horse team, but man, they can,
They're
as far
guys
as-
playing legit leagues and they play in legit teams. That's the thing is you look at the breakdown of the Croatian roster, and Blake and I were talking before the show that let's look at one of the power nations back in the day, back in the Cold War era, Yugoslavia. And I think of the breaking up of the Yugoslavia, you look at it kind of be debated whether it's Croatia or Serbia, but look at Croatia 98. Suker, I believe got the golden boot. They went on to third place. And this is the resurgence of, those great Yugoslavian teams back in the day. They didn't win a World Cup, but they had some runs. They put together some really good teams. And I remember in the 98 World Cup in France, and they just destroyed USA back when they were still Yugoslavia. And so it's looking at it. These countries have the roots. Just it's a newer name of a country because of the breakup of Yugoslavia. But, you have some of those power nations like Czechoslovakia, Yugoslavia back in the 50s and 60s that were scary teams.
Hungary was unbelievable in the 50s.
Yeah, you look at some of their stats, unbelievable.
If you ever see footage of them, I was fortunate to see some footage of them back in 54, and they were so far ahead of so many countries. Actually, West Germany won the 54 World Cup, but Hungary beat them in the pool play 8-3.
That's scary.
And the Germans pulled the big upset
by beating them
winning
in
the
the
final 3-2.
Yeah, and they were down in that game, I think, too.
That's why it's hard to beat a team twice, especially in the
How do you
World
put up
Cup.
an 8 spot on Germany?
Well, ask Hungary.
Yeah, exactly. To do it once but not do it twice. That's the thing is, sometimes when you beat a team, you almost beat them too bad. You beat them so bad that it's like you gave them. We just got to go change our whole thing. I've seen that in a college game where teams that we easily handle in a regular season, if we got to meet them in a playoff game, you don't want to play them again.
Well, does Southgate have in the back of his mind that, hey, maybe we get to the final against Belgium, and a little bit of good fortune comes our way because of that? I mean, I would think
played them well.
they would have scenarios for every team they're playing in every game based on all the data that's out there now.
Yeah.
They would think, okay, if we lose this game, then guess what? We're probably due for the next one, and here's our data why.
Yeah, sometimes it's good to lose teams because you need that footage of losing. Belgium has not lost yet, so when you're on a winning streak, 10-game winning, you have to find snippets of games. What did we do wrong? We won 5-0. How can I criticize my coach? Because you need to motivate guys. You want to stay on a win streak, but if they're doing everything right, it's like, what do we address? Because you don't want a team walking, guys, you're doing everything right. Yeah, you're doing everything right. Don't worry about it. We won our last 5 or 6 games. You're good. We don't need to work on anything because there's always something you need to work on. And I'm sure if you've gone through that in your coaching career, that if a team's doing so well, you still have to light that fire into them. You got to motivate them.
You do, and you don't want them to take their foot off the gas or off the pedal, and you want them to make sure they stay motivated. So you have to find that blend of walking a tightrope. I always call coaching walking a tightrope between, pushing too hard, pushing too less, pulling too hard, pulling too less, to make sure that you figure out how can I get the most out of my team? How can I maximize their potential level?
Yeah, it's a very hard thing to do. I mean, we had a 10-game winning streak this past season, and we had a loss mixed in there right before the playoffs, and it was a wake-up call. Because our guys, we had already locked up the 1 seed in our playoffs. The loss didn't hurt us, but in reality, it might have maybe rankings-wise, but it woke our team up because the next 2 games we won like 4-0. Because it really, sometimes it's good to ground the team. If you can take that loss, like in England, they looked so good against Panama. That goal against Panama kind of woke them up, and then against Belgium, all right, okay, we're not invincible.
It was great, too, to see Panama celebrate and the country celebrate when they scored. It was fantastic.
Yeah,
I loved it.
I was so happy for them because, that guy is the only guy that can walk around Panama. Like, yeah, I'm that guy that scored against England. He's going to be rooting for England. He'd be like, yeah, see that team? I scored on them. And it was a legit goal. It wasn't we gave it to him kind of goal. And we're going to take a quick break. When we come back, we'll talk NWSL soccer. We'll talk the youth soccer scape. This is Charlie Flo World Sports Show on WPPN LP. We'll be right back.
This is Denisha Adams, and you're listening to World Sports Show on WPPM 106.5 Philadelphia.
World Sports Show audio archive.
Landry here from AC Fairfield, and Tariq here from AC Fairfield. So we have quite a mix of people that are youth coaches, that are college coaches, basically all of us here right now. Even John, you coach youth soccer, and I think that's a big topic right now. We're going to talk about a lot of the youth development and intercity development of athletic programs. So are you guys based in North Philly, Fairhill?
Yes, we are.
Now, when did you guys start this whole program up?
We started the program August 2015 officially. We had a camp prior to that in July, or late June actually, 2015, that kind of kicked it off. But our first practice was August 2015.
So fairly young club in infant stages.
Yeah, super young.
So most of your players you draw in from your program come from North Philly, am I correct?
All over the city, pretty much all over the city.
Yeah, I would probably say 3/4 of them come from the surrounding neighborhood. And then we have the other 25% that come from Southwest or Germantown. So
you try to in. So you bring them in from all walks of the city, really?
Yeah, it's weird because we'll get a call like, "Hey, I'm coming in from the airport," and I'm like, "All right, we got practice at 6. I hope we can make it home in time."
You flying in players then? This guy's already importing players second year.
So the parents like, "I get up at 5. I'm coming from Southwest." I'm like, "Well, we start at 6, so hopefully you guys can make it." So it's been exciting and interesting the first year and a half. 2 years.
What's some?
And now, back to the WPPM studios in Philadelphia. This is the World Sports Show.
And Charlotte Flo World Sports Show here on WPPN LP Philadelphia. Also find us online at phillycam.org/listen. We're just recapping the World Cup with John, Blake, and I, and going to dip into our Wednesday semifinal match. That'll be the match between England and Croatia. All of our English fans out there I know are pretty happy singing, football's coming home. So I know that has been probably a top 10 track back in England now. So look at that game. Send it around the table. I'll start with you, John. Who do you think is going to get that one, England or Croatia?
From the beginning, I have Croatia.
From the beginning, you've had Croatia.
I wouldn't be surprised if England takes it.
Okay.
Playing well. Playing very well. But,
Backlines.
it's just, I called it, they're progressively getting better. It seems like each game, one little thing they're doing better, adding it up. So it's going to be hard to beat. But, score-wise, I see maybe a 3-2 game.
Okay.
2-2. I see a couple goals going in the net.
Yeah, this is not England going against Sweden. This is a team that can score in Croatia. I think that not that Sweden was an easy win, but Sweden's not known for its offensive power. I mean, we saw them unleash fury on Mexico, but that was the one game I think is the exception that we usually see Sweden as it's just kind of a gutted out type of team. It's beat you with pure defense.
I'm just interested to see if Croatia throws anything different, any different kind of wrinkle, because they've been pretty much playing consistently the same formation and just the same amount of possession. I'd like to see them try. Do they need to? Do they need to do anything different?
I don't think they need to do anything different. I don't know. What do you think, Blake, about Croatia?
Well, I'll tell you what, with Croatia, if you can limit Modric's time on the ball and his space, and that's going to be probably the big key from my perspective in the midfield. Can they contain him, and can they limit his ability to pick his head up and just start picking people apart? And the other part of that is his connection to Mandzukic. Can we stop that? If England can do that, I think England may ride on to the final, and it'll be, calling you going, Chelsea, oh boy, England's in. We're excited.
Yeah, exactly.
And I think England's a new look team. They look completely different from the England of old. And they needed that. It's like going in to get the same suit every day, and you're buying, gray pinstripe.
Yeah.
Well, let's bust out with like a bright blue double breast and get it on. That's essentially what England's done now. They've essentially had the three lions roaring now.
That's the thing about England is we've seen the same style England over and over and over, and a lot of the big criticism is giving their youth players an opportunity. Is we've seen the EPL league having so many imports have, impacts in the world game, but you have these EPL teams that aren't really giving their own players a shot. Now we're starting to see, hey, you got to give their players a shot, and they didn't go with some of the big names. There was no Joe Hart in goal. You're going with a goalkeeper and Jordan Pickford. It was just 3 or 4 or about 5 years ago playing in lower conference leagues. And seeing these young players on England that just a couple years ago got posters of Ronaldo in their bedrooms, So going for a youthful team that's creative and I think almost, wouldn't say arrogant, but almost arrogant enough that they can go out there and win, where you didn't just go pick the big teams like, okay, let's get John Terry, let's get Rio Ferdinand, let's get Beckham, all the names that everybody knew, but you have a lot of names that aren't necessarily household names on England. Young, quick, fast players. And I think the neat thing was a breakdown. They did a breakdown of all the different players on England's, all their different heritage. You got a couple of Jamaicans on the team. You got a couple other Caribbeans on the team, and you've got the national team. It is looking kind of like a French national team. Let's start using all of our resources and pick the best team. You got these players in EPL that might be Jamaican descent. Well, let's get that guy on a team if he's good enough.
It's the infusion of all the talent and resources, because the press for so long would be after whoever the foreign manager was. He wasn't an Englishman.
Yeah.
So now they have a Briton in charge, and guess what? Has the press backed off on that? Probably a good bit. And Southgate's been great. I mean, you look at the waistcoats, I call them a vest.
Yeah.
But the waistcoat sales are up like 35 or 40%.
Yeah, they're selling out. Some of my friends in England are telling me.
Unbelievable. And they had a guy in the stands that basically could have been his identical twin.
Yeah.
It was
I'm going to
funny
double
to
ask him,
see.
too.
You could. You can almost pass for Southgate.
Yeah, exactly. Throw him in. It's a stunt double to distract the paparazzi. If he wins it all, then maybe I can get some double work. Just throw me in there. So, but that's the thing is even Southgate's got demons to escape of his own with his missing his penalty, which they love to show. His dreaded penalty. But it's talk about getting a monkey off his back. That. I actually had an appointment, and I'm sitting in a doctor's office watching PKs on my phone, because it's the thing about the World Cup. Whenever you have plans, those are the games that go to PKs. So luckily that we have the luxury of watching on our phones now. Like kids growing up today don't even realize how hard it was, that we wouldn't even get games on television. We have to get a newspaper the next day, or have to wait for the news report to come out or something like that, or over the wire, a telegram.
Soccer man Germany.
Yeah, exactly.
They would talk about that. The game would be delayed. And somebody would go, "Have you seen this guy Henry?" And I'm like, "Who, Henry?"
Yeah,
just Henry. No idea who this guy.
Yep,
well, Henry's the best striker in the world. I'm thinking his name's Henry. Don't you know what it is?
Yeah, it's like 1990 was the first World Cup I watched in English. Up until then, I'm going to Grandma's house and watching it on the Spanish channel. My '86 was the first World Cup I really watched. Saw glimpses of '82 was because it just wasn't television, and I think I heard some mixed reports about all Fox is regretting, getting the World Cup because U.S. not in it. But I just saw a release today by the Washington Post that these semi or quarterfinal matches were the highest, like U.S. quarterfinals, like especially the England game. That everybody talks about. Oh, a lot of the Mexican Americans are buying Mexican jersey, but there's so many English and so much roots that we root for England. It's weird how we separated from England, but we're still drawn to watching England play.
I remember
watching
watching
the leagues,
the '82 and the '86 games. The '82 semifinal, the great game, World Germany versus France, where they're tied in regulation. France goes up 3-1. Germany equalizes 3-3, or West Germany at that point.
Yeah.
And then West Germany wins it on PKs. And I remember watching Jorge Burruchaga with the last few minutes of that game when Argentina was up 2-0, and then West Germany tied it. And then he comes back and beats an outstretched Schumacher in the last minutes to win it 3-2.
Wow.
I remember those days. And those were the few games that we got to watch.
Yeah, the few games we would really hold on to that every 4 years to watch a game. So it'll be interesting. Like I said, semifinals are Tuesday at 2 o'clock on Fox. It'll be Belgium and France. And then on July 11th, which is Wednesday, Croatia, England. We're going to break down a little bit of the Women's League. They had quite a few games this past week, and Asia actually had a July 4th game where North Carolina played Chicago. North Carolina put up a big hurting on Chicago. Red Stars. North Carolina won by a score of 4-1. They extend their league lead to 39 points. Closest team is Seattle with 26 points. Portland on July 6th, which was on Friday, beat Utah by a score of 4-1. Yesterday, Chicago beats Sky Blue at Sky Blue by a score of 3-1. Sam Kerr scores 3 goals against her former team. First player in WSL history leads 50 goals. Also on the ESPN game yesterday, Orlando beat Washington by a score of 2-1. Marta scores a late game winner. Also, Seattle beats Houston by a score of 3-1. Several other games coming up on the 11th. The midweek game is North Carolina, Washington, Orlando, and Houston. And Seattle will play Utah. So it's still wide open on the 2, 3, 4 spots, but that one spot is pretty much locked up to Carolina. I don't think anybody's beating them anytime soon. We did see them lose, but they're definitely going to be the 1 seed.
And how long is Marta going to play? She is just timeless.
I mean, that's the thing is she's a gem, and I think that it's great having these foreign players that are competitive, like your Sinclair and Marta, players that push the U.S., players that can beat the U.S. and have beaten the U.S. that that a few years from now won't be playing the game. So,
well, she reminds me of Christine Lilly, who just played forever.
Yeah,
played well into her 40s.
Almost 40s. Yeah,
it was just
it's. I think that in this day and age, with the amount we put into nutrition and sports science, playing in the 40s is not going to be a shocker. I mean, we're gonna see the mid 40s. What?
Yeah, probably for goalkeepers, it's a much easier route.
But a field player that, especially Marta, that it's a centerpiece of the offense. You have so much funnel through her that you're talking about wear and tear on her body throughout the games that would not be surprised. And seeing a player like Sam Kerr inspires me to see that, gosh, does she have another 50 in her, and she made some very interesting comments. I wouldn't say they were controversial comments, but she talked to my buddy Dan Letta, which was my color commentator when I did television for Sky Blue, that she feels sad and sick for the Sky Blue players. And it's tough. You look at Sky Blue, 14 games played, and they've gotten 3 points, gotten 3 draws. So, I mean, you're talking North Carolina with 39 points. I mean, you're 36 points off the leader. You're looking yourself a good 22 points out of the playoff picture. And they're not even going to make the playoffs. Will they even win one game? A negative 15 goal differential. So it's a tough spot that Denise Reddy's in. That I see that is the ownership just not going out there and willing to take care of the players. And it's a tough situation to be in for a lot of these players that are hardworking, and keep gutting it out, showing up every day for work. It's got to be the hardest thing when you've gotten 3 ties out of 14 games. You've gotten 3 results, but 0 wins. I mean, it's never been on that side, on a coaching side. I've never been outside as a player that just on an O for team.
You just got to keep trying.
Yeah.
You got to keep going, and the breakthrough at some point will come. It may not necessarily happen this year for them or in the near future. None of us know, but you do have to feel for them a bit. But they got each other, and it's going to be a great building experience for their futures too.
They have talent. That's the thing is you look at the roster. Leon from Canada. You have Carly Lloyd, obviously.
McCaskill.
McCaskill is a very bright spot, and she's been called up to some recent U.S. camps and putting her name out there. And I think that's the biggest thing is you got Amanda Fries, that came over with Boston. So just my whole thing is I don't want to see this team fold. We already saw Boston fold last year. I just don't want to see this team fold. And I think that maybe the league and U.S. Soccer needs to reevaluate ownership and how money's spent. And that's the biggest thing is attracting players. Are players going to want to come to this team? When you have teams like Utah that are on the rise and they're giving their players real locker rooms, real access, real training facilities. We talked about Portland, how you've gone to games in Portland, how, Portland Timbers and Portland Thorns, they have amazing facilities. So it does come down to that is you being former college coach, John's a college coach, I'm a college coach, that facilities make a big deal in recruitment, where we practice, where we train, that I've heard so many stories of where it's a step back. You've got all these players that come from prestigious D1 programs. that come from Big Ten, ACC, SEC, where now I'm back to practicing facilities when I was 12 years old.
Well, it's all about the environment for them is what I really think, to where the best players, the cream will rise to the crop at that point. It's like the recruiting process today in women's soccer. It's getting so early that the best players get off the board easy and quick, to where they have so many offers, so many bells and whistles to choose from, that it can be a little bit of a downfall, I guess, when they get to the next level, and the next level is not what they were currently playing at.
Yeah, especially if they're in the national team pool, that you go from playing at a prestigious university, playing with the national team, and then you go to playing for a club team that this league is not equal. You rarely hear the complaints on the MLS side. I mean, if the complaints are anything, it's minor compared to the NWSL, but it's true. Like John and I have hired a couple of players that for our camps, and I can't come to your camp today and work the camp for you because our practice got rearranged because there was a 15-year-old team practicing, so we couldn't practice at our time. So you hear the stories and it is frustrating because a lot of these players don't make a lot of money. Out of the national team players, they're making a few thousand, so they rely on that second income from being a trainer and a coach. So when you start taking that away from his players, yeah, I can understand them being very frustrated. So I think that something I've preached at a couple of teams that have very unhappy players is getting very involved in the community. You have like Washington Spirit is then like adopt a team. I know until the Flash moved to Carolina is having every one of your players, like with Washington, they have all their players assigned to a youth team in the area where that player is a trainer and you have a relationship with that club. But hey, go let that player for a couple $100 a week go be a trainer for a youth team. And then that team's coming out to your games. To me, that's a no-brainer. Get them involved in coaching, because nothing better than when I get some of my college players involved in coaching locally that I start seeing the gears grinding within their head that they're learning the game. Getting your players you coach to start coaching, you're teaching them twice. Teach them at practice, and then when they're out there training, they're learning itself. So, I mean, that's, to me, seems like across the board, every team should adopt connecting with all the local teams. And there's so many people out there like me and John and you that all work as coaches professionally, but why not get these professional players being on coaching staffs too?
And it's different being a player versus being a coach when you're on the other side of it as well.
Yeah, exactly.
It's a lot like being a parent. When you have your first child, you're like, oh my, I need to call my parents and tell them 2 things. Thank you. Well, 3 things. I'm sorry, and I love you.
So you spent a lot of years in the college game and the women's game, and you had some interesting rides in the NCAA tournament. And, you know, unfortunately, I've been on the short end of a couple NCAA draws, so I'm just waiting for the committee. And just talk about some of your experiences playing in the NCAA tournament. You've played against Florida State. You've played against some of the big teams, some of these players that are now playing on national team level.
Well, you know, we played against Florida State in 2009. We're sitting in a restaurant watching the selection show come up on the board, and LSU was a 4 seed that year. And I'm thinking, okay, we're probably going to Baton Rouge. What a great setting that would have been to have 2 teams from one state,
because you were South Louisiana. Yeah, Louisiana, right around the corner.
Tournament, probably the record crowd that game could have produced, and we get bypassed. And then I'm thinking, okay, there's only a certain number of teams left, and all of a sudden Florida State pops up. We're like, all right, you know, we're going to Tallahassee. And I'm thinking, all right, but we're also playing number 1 in the country and the number 1 seed in the tournament. So we go down there.
What year was this again?
This is 2009.
2009, okay.
So our SWA comes to me and says, you know, you guys can drive or you can fly. If you fly, you take 2 different flights. You have to split the team, or you can bus. And I'm thinking, you know, we got our own movies. I get to selfishly have 2 seats to myself on the bus. We control our own food. Our players are relaxed.
That is weird. You offer 2 different flights.
Well, it's just
you're going through Albuquerque and you guys are going through Tallahassee.
Yeah, you guys are going this way. So I'm thinking, you know, I think we'll bus. And so we had a great time down. We get there, we have our training day, and you look up and they have a big jumbotron, like we had in our football stadium. So we're thinking, okay, maybe our girls now understand the gravity of, you know, kind of what's going on, and they did a great job with the game. We go down 2-0 after 20 minutes, and we're thinking, okay, so we're going to have to really climb a mountain to get back into this thing. So something happens, the ball gets misplayed, my attacker gets on it, puts in the net, and it's 2-1. And I'm thinking, okay, somebody, A, get a picture of the scoreboard. B, I look around, and all of a sudden, it's pandemonium. Their radio station apparently freezes for a few seconds because they don't know what to do because somebody scored against them, which is hard to do in the NCAA tournament. I look at the fans, and they're just kind of stunned across the field. Our fans are going berserk. We had fans in the parking deck, too, to the left of us, and they're going crazy. My team's up off the bench like we'd won the World Cup. And I look over at their coach, Mark Kokorian, who I think is one of our nation's absolute top coaches. And I look over at him, he's just kind of smiling.
Cool as a cucumber.
Yeah.
Not big deal.
And all I could do is just kind of laugh. I'm thinking, this is unbelievably exciting for everybody. And I'm thinking, I'm in a moment here, and I'm just watching this.
Yeah, you just got to enjoy that moment.
So, they have Tiffany McCarty. They have Tony Presley in the back, who is probably 6 foot tall and can drive a ball 70 yards with her left foot. So the whole goal is, can we eliminate her from serving as much as possible and switching the field? So, we get out of the game 4-1 and play them straight up and lose to number 1 in the country. And no shame at that point.
Yeah, 4-1 to a team that
they steamroll teams a lot of times. They'll put 4 or 5 on the board against, SEC teams in the quarterfinals. And so, I felt pretty good about our performance. Even though we did lose the game, it was a big step on our program's, growth. And it was fantastic for us. And, that's really kind of when Mark and I became good friends. It was a fun experience for us.
Yeah, definitely. Now you've moved on with Continental. You've been with Continental close to 2 years. Now, how did you get involved with Continental?
Continental came up, last the spring of kind of 17, early spring.
Yeah.
It just kind of evolved, developed, and boom, here we are. My family and I moved up, and, I came up a few months before them, and then they came up basically around this time last year. And, we're all Southern people, and we've adjusted very well to the weather, very well to.
Yeah, it's not even hot. I love when Philadelphia people say it's hot. Like when me and you are doing camps, it's going to be a hot one. I'm like, define hot.
This ain't hot.
Yeah, exactly.
As we like to say. I'll throw in a Southern word there for you, too. It's like you're fixing to put sunscreen on.
Yeah, I actually made that mistake when I first moved to Philly. I said, what time are we fixing to get dinner? If it's like the record went off, the needle went off the record, it's like fixing. Yeah, it's so hot. You hear the bugs boiling and the sounds of just the heat.
Oh, we would train in August, and sometimes we go in our football stadium.
Yeah.
And you could see the heat 3 feet off the ground, just when you see in movies,
mirage,
to where you see the mirage.
Yeah.
It's very much like that, and it gets so warm. So I'm used to the heat and humidity. It's not a big deal for us. I'm just looking around thinking, what's everybody so upset about? Oh, it's hot up here today.
Yeah, so now I guess I got to ask you the question. I know that one of our good friends, Ella Masters, always, she's a long-time alumni of the Women's League, and been playing over in Scandinavian leagues. That I know me and her joke about how she doesn't like the water breaks. And it's just something that I grew up playing soccer in Southern Virginia. And our sport was a spring into summer. So we're talking playoff time, late spring. We're getting in the 100-degree weather, probably 100 and teens heat index, and there was none of that, like, let's stop the game for a water break. We're starting to see that at the pro level. And it just scratches my head that we're stopping the game and making it into, like, basketball or American football.
Well, I think they're more concerned about player safety.
Yeah.
I think litigation becomes a factor in everything today with that. The other
liability, that's the biggest word.
Liability is a massive one, to where it can actually be good from a tactical standpoint. If you need to get a few words to one of your players or help to get the team calm in a setting, or if you're up to encourage, whatever it may be, I think the water breaks can be very conducive for that. As far as the flow of the game, I don't think it affects the flow of the game as far as they're probably not in play going to stop it. Most of the times they had a stoppage is when they would do their water break. And at times it can't be merited. Now, where I was near New Orleans, at times it was merited.
Yeah.
Because you could see the effect of
the level of the game just
definitely.
You know what I was thinking real quick? Doesn't she play defender?
Yeah.
Isn't that real close to the water bottle next to the net?
Exactly. The right back is like,
if she was a midfielder,
center midfield at the center circle, there's no water fountain there. You got to tap your own well. But it's like the goalkeeper complaining about water breaks there. Come on, buddy. You get the water bottle in the net,
They got gloves, so their hands are hot. So.
Exactly. Handle with caution, So, no. But, no, I've just joined up with Continental a few months ago and loving it and loving all the programs we got going, and get the pleasure to coach with famous Lincoln Phillips this week in his keeper camp. So it's always good to read the stories about him and just getting involved and getting out there with the kids and just having all different levels of experience because now you're coaching with the high school age girls and helping them get on to college, which you know a lot about.
It's fun because now I basically recruited players for around 25 years, and both on the men's and the women's side, and it's fun to help produce players. I spent the bulk of my time in the women's game and really enjoyed it. If you look at going back to someone like Lincoln Phillips, look at that guy's history. Won an NCAA title at Howard, has coached all over the globe, is in his mid-70s, and will still go to ground for a ball to demonstrate as a goalkeeper. It just has
77 years old,
unbelievable energy and knowledge for the game that you're just not going to find.
I want to thank everybody for tuning in to World Sports Show. I'm Charlie Flo. He's John Nicrisio. Thank you, Blake, for coming in. Appreciate you coming in. And
thank you, guys.
See you at camp tomorrow morning early.
Sounds great. See you there.
And we're out.
Thank you for watching a World Sports Show production. For more info, go to worldsportsshow.com.